Wherever there is love for medicine, there is also love for humanity. And I'm sitting here in the midst of an eminent panel of physicians and surgeons who have an insatiable love towards medicine and humanity. Before we move on any further, let me get into introducing this eminent panel of physicians and surgeons. On my immediate right is Professor Srinath Chandrasekhara. He is the president of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show. Also, on my far right is Professor Rowan Parkes. He is the Vice President of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And on my immediate left is Professor Jackie Taylor. She is the President of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. A very good evening, madam, and welcome to the show. And on my far left is Dr. Narendra Pinto. He is the past president of the SARC Surgical Care Society. The interview today, of course, and this discussion that we have organized is, of course, in line with the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. 50 years of excellence. There's a saying that goes, epic things come from humble beginnings. And in our eminent panel of surgeons and physicians here is one member of who has experienced the humble beginnings of the College of Surgeons here in Sri Lanka. And that is none other than Professor Srinath Chandrasekhara. So, Professor, my first question to you. The College of Surgeons here in Sri Lanka, what really is the contribution of the College of Surgeons to Sri Lanka as a nation? And also, you spoke about humble beginnings just before our recordings began. A few members to a college of over 600 members right now. What was the journey like?
Yes, Sharon. The College of Surgeons was inaugurated in 1971. I was just a toddler then. But I do know through the annals of our college that this was a collective of a handful of eminent surgeons at that time who met with a collective vision to improve the quality of surgical care in this country. So that has always been our prime objective. And in achieving this objective, the College of Surgeons, as the apex body for all surgical specialties in this country, has spearheaded numerous initiatives. This includes education, training, interaction with our international peers, and developing our own very own postgraduate system, which began in the late 70s, in which the specialty of surgery has been guided all the way along by the College of Surgeons. So our vision to enhance and improve patient care in this country has been achieved through numerous means. And as you said, it's with a great sense of humility that I state that as we celebrate our Golden Jubilee, we can be very happy that these objectives have been met quite amply, not only by the achievement of having 600 surgeons, but more importantly, being able to deliver specialist surgical care in any corner of the country, whether it be Mana, Jaffna, Hambantota, or any other far corner. I'm delighted to place on record on behalf of the surgeons, as well as those responsible for such developments, that within 1 hour of traveling distance, anywhere in this country, we have got access to specialist surgical care. I think as a developing country, that has been one of the most remarkable achievements that the surgeons, together with the state, has been able to achieve.
Professor Rowan Parkes, now, in contrast to, of course, Professor Chandrasekhara, you are a member of a College of Surgeons spanning over hundreds of years, the College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. Comparing, well, of course, the development of the College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, which is quite long-term compared to Sri Lanka, what do you see the specialities of the Sri Lanka College of Surgeons? Have they progressed enough? What's the situation like?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh has been around for many hundreds of years. It was established in 1505 and got its seal of cause at that time. So for over 500 years, it's been there to promote high standards in patient care, education and assessment of surgeons in training. So those were the ethos in the humble beginnings of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. And throughout its, I guess, journey, it has followed many of the same principles of trying to enhance and improve patient care and ensure good training of our surgeons who provide the workforce to deliver the surgical care. And like all the surgical colleges across the world, that's our main aim. And I think we've had a very close association with surgeons in general in Sri Lanka for well over 100 years. There have been surgeons working in this country who have been members of our college since the end of the 20th century. And it's been fantastic in recent years, and particularly to celebrate the last 50 years of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, that they have established a really important body that upholds high standards of care, education and training. So I think what the colleges are doing worldwide is very similar, and it's great to see them celebrating a Golden Jubilee, a 50-year anniversary. It's a wonderful milestone.
Professor Jackie Taylor, you're in Sri Lanka for the Sri Lanka Surgical Conference 2021. What's the speciality of this event, besides, of course, the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka celebrating 50 years of service to the nation and to the world? What are the objectives that you hope might be accomplished through this conference?
Well, I think it is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate, and I think particularly after the difficult times that we've all had in the last couple of years, it is good to be celebrating success, and we are here to celebrate the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka's success. And it's been lovely to be able to work in partnership with the college over many decades. While we've all got used to having conferences and events and meetings in the virtual world, there's absolutely no doubt that there is no substitute for that personal connection. And I think what we will gain from being physically present here with our friends, with our colleagues, are those really important opportunities to network, to build the friendships that are there, and to really think about the future and how we continue to work together.
Professor Taylor, we're in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think the risk that we're taking is really worth it?
I think the risks are very, very well managed. We in Glasgow, of course, hosted the COP26 meeting a couple of weeks ago, when we had tens of thousands of delegates from all over the world in Glasgow. So I think it is important that we're mindful and respectful of the restrictions in place. But I think so many factors have been there have been so many mitigations to ensure the safety of all those who attend. So yes, I think this has been a very carefully managed event, and I'm sure we will all reap the benefits from that physical presence here together.
I believe Professor Chandrasekhar can attest to that fact, because he has been personally overseeing the safety measures.
Indeed.
And I must place on record that all our activities and celebrations conform to not only national but the international framework of guidelines for meetings during the pandemic.
Moving my attention, of course, now to Dr. Narendra Pinto. Doctor, when we speak of Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka's accomplishments, given our positioning in the world, the region is important. We are part of the SAARC region. And as such, our accomplishments in the SAARC region are also much spoken of. Speaking specifically about the College of Surgeons in Sri Lanka and their service to the country, not only to the country, but to the region, how do you view the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka?
Sharan, I am happy to say that we have very good health indices in the region, SAARC region. And our surgical services and the medical services reach any part of the country. Now, of course, I mean, after the war, the whole country is accessible. So unlike in some part of the SAARC region where due to the terrain or due to the terrorist activities, some regions of those countries may not be accessible. But fortunately, we are lucky to provide equal service to the whole country. So I think we are we are in a fairly good position in the region. But of course, when we compare to the neighboring India, or Pakistan, we need to achieve more.
Dr. Pinto, speaking about Sri Lanka, the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, their role in the SAARC Surgical Care Society, what has the role been like? Have we been in the front? Have we been in the back?
Actually, Sharon, I'm proud to say that this organization of collective of surgeons was initiated by our own surgeon past president, Professor Arjuna Aluvihare, in 1996. In that year, he was the president of the College of Surgeons, and he had this idea, and he invited all the surgeons from the region, SAARC region, from the apex bodies to form this organization, and got it ratified by the foreign ministries of all these countries. And for that, he has to travel to almost all these countries. And then, along with Professor M.D. Ramavansa, incidentally, he is the current president of the SAARC Surgical Care Society. Of course, I mean, he is in Peradeniya. Due to logistic reasons, he couldn't attend to this meeting. So, 1996, he started it and became the founder president. After that, every 2 years, this was transferred into each country. And in 2009, I was the president of the SAARC Surgical Care Society, as well as the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka and Orthopedic Association. So it's 3 caps on the same year. But I'm happy to say that, in fact, in 2009, I invited Professor John Dio from Edinburgh, Royal College of Edinburgh, and then he arrived here with a team of surgeons, and we renewed our relations. In fact, the college mace had been donated by the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh back in early 70s, and it's still there preserved. So we renewed our relation, and then we progressed to forming a MOU and the second MOU, and then we are and extended our relations with Glasgow and England College, as well as we have moved to most of Malaysia, even Sweden, and I think Srinath will tell you the number of organizations we have.
So, Professor Srinath, although we have only representatives here, present here at this interview, specifically from the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and Glasgow, Sri Lanka, the College of Surgeons in Sri Lanka has relationships with many other colleges of surgeons across the world.
Yes, indeed, Sharon. As Dr. Pinto indicated, the college, like with many other colleges internationally, we have diverse links with many parts of the world, whether it be the Far East, Japan, Thailand, Australia, America. But our strongest links, I must say, has been in the United Kingdom, and in particular with the Royal Colleges in Edinburgh and Glasgow. So Dr. Pinto intimated to our very close links with Glasgow, which has enabled us to have rapid progress in numerous spheres. So similarly, we have had interactions with Glasgow. The formalities began only in 2013 or 14, and in 2018 2016 we were able to, like with Edinburgh, we were able to enter into an MOU to enhance quality assurance, examination, accreditation, and numerous other academic enhancements. So yes, we've got global links, and all of it has been mutually beneficial. So I believe and I hope that our interactions have not only benefited this country, but the friendships have benefited to network and learn from each other, which is taking us to where we are heading.
Professor, would it be right for me to say that the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and Glasgow, of course, would have a special place here, although?
Indeed. I don't think there's any discussion about it. But I must also say that we have honored guests, President of the Malaysian College, arriving in Sri Lanka very soon.
For the Surgical Congress?
Yes, and he'll be gracing all our events physically. We have Dr. Abed Dalabi, who's attending, representing India, and we have a delegation from Pakistan. So, I mean, it's a time for celebration, and I'm very grateful to all our international partners for being here despite the ongoing challenges.
Professor Srinath Chandrasekhara, like you mentioned before, of course, this event is being held under strict health guidelines. We have international guests, and you said not just local health guidelines, but international guidelines. Professor, what do you plan on accomplishing through this surgical congress? Besides, of course, the celebrations of your achievements, what does this really mean to the people of this country?
I think, Shalan, if I may slightly digress from the question, this celebration will reflect the achievements we have made not only this year, but collectively over the last 5 decades. And if you give me a minute to explain, they're quite numerous. If I may highlight, we've accomplished, despite the COVID, we've set out on certain objectives, all of which is focused towards enhanced patient care. So we've had numerous programs. I will just give you the highlights. Firstly, despite the COVID, we did not reduce our educational activities. We were one of the first colleges last year to, within days, because it suddenly dawned upon us that there was going to be a lockdown in the middle of a conference. So within a matter of days, our college managed to convert the previously intended on-site conference into a digital conference. So since then, all our educational activities, whenever possible, has been through the virtual route. So we now, due to this mode of communication, not only have enhanced participation, because as you can imagine, doctors don't have to travel from far and wide to come to the college for education. It's at the click of a button. We now have international participation. So we have, I think, the COVID, one of the positives of the COVID has been that we have enhanced our educational activities. And we have had enhanced international participation, because it's that much easier for top experts from across the world to link to us and then teach our youngsters. So that's been one achievement. The second achievement is, of course, about one of the serious problems that the entire world faces, which is trauma management. Now, the problems with trauma is no different to us in Sri Lanka as compared with the rest of the world. Is one of the leading causes of death and the number one cause of hospital admission in the emergency department. So for many years, I think throughout the history of the college, our surgeons have been focused towards enhancing or improving trauma care. Numerous things have been done. It's far too numerous to mention here in this brief interview. But this year, what we've done is not to do new things, but we put everything together. So we've re-edited our trauma manuals. We've coordinated between the World Health Organization, the Ministry of Health, other stakeholders such as the Sri Lanka Medical Council, your TV network itself for public awareness. As you know, we were planning to go on a roadshow across the country to increase public awareness. And we put all these systems together to bring about numerous policy changes which will enable our country to do better with what we already have. And we've achieved that too.
So all of these efforts, all of these meetings, these labors of your sweat and blood is to provide better surgical care
Indeed.
to citizens of this country and, of course, moving on to the global picture, the rest of the world. Professor Parks, you heard the accomplishments of the College of Surgeons here in Sri Lanka, as mentioned by Professor Chandrasekhara, in your vast expertise and 500 years of existence of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. How would you rank us?
Oh, very, very highly. You know, I think we've all had to adapt to new ways of working, and education is part of our core activities. So very similar to the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, we've done that adaptation and moved a lot of our education programs and events online. So we've used a lot of webinars. The Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh has over 30,000 members, and almost half of those are international members, spread all over the world, some in Sri Lanka, but across other SARC countries and throughout the world. But they've been able to benefit from these educational activities, so very similar to what's happened here in the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka, been able to maintain education and scientific endeavours in that format. So we've used webinars and have had 35,000 people tune into those webinars over the last 18 months, surgeons. And so seeing what's happened here, it's exactly the same, and that's a huge benefit. So we're all striving to improve patient care. That I think is one of the reasons colleges exist. Education's a big part of that. But education not just of surgeons, of the public. And I think what you're doing and you know, the road shows and engaging with the public and raising awareness is absolutely fantastic. So great credit to the college for doing that.
Professor Jackie Taylor, you also heard the accomplishments of the Sri Lanka College of Surgeons. How has your collaboration and partnership been with the College of Surgeons in Sri Lanka, and specifically on the Surgical Congress 2021?
Well, I think our collaboration has been over many decades, and it's been a real joy to be able to assist. I think as medical and surgical professionals around the world, I think we all feel a strong sense of responsibility to share our learning and share our knowledge. And as Srinath said, that is mutually beneficial. All parties benefit from working in partnership. So it really has been a fantastic experience for us. We've tried to assist particularly with the assessment and examination of surgeons who are in training, and that is a particular piece of work that we've been involved in. As far as the Congress is concerned, we are. I'm with two other colleagues from the Glasgow College, and we are all looking forward to participating. We've all pre-recorded our presentations for the event, and we're just very much looking forward to physically being in an auditorium together, I would say. We are a slightly different college because we are a college of physicians and surgeons, so we cover both sides of the house, if you would like to put it that way. But the principles that you've heard from Srinath and from Rowan are absolutely the same for all of us. It is, at the end of the day, all about patient care. It's all about providing the best standards of patient care, and that means providing the best training for physicians and surgeons, providing the right knowledge, and then making sure that they reach a standard that will allow them to practice safely and with compassion.
Dr. Narendra Pinto, we've been speaking about College of Surgeons across the world, just as Professor Srinath Chandrasekhara mentioned. Sri Lanka has connections with colleges of surgeons across the world, but particularly, as I mentioned before, our region plays an important role, the SARC region. How has Sri Lanka's collaboration been with the rest of the colleges of surgeons in the SARC region? Like you pointed out, we did pioneer in the establishment of the SARC Surgical Care Society, but a couple of decades down the line, how has it fared?
Yes, Sharon, I must tell you about our name of this organization. Our organization is SARC Surgical Care Society. And this care word has been purposely put to emphasize the service component of this organization. So our primary involvement is caring the surgeons, providing surgical care to the common people. So to tell you about the SARC region, if you consider the land mass, it consists about 3% of the global land mass. But this 3% land mass houses 25% of the global population. So it's a very dense population. And when there is dense population, so that means overcrowding and these financial constraints in the region, common in the region, problems, sometimes terrorist activities and other modes of, as Srinath said, trauma is the biggest problem. And so we have very much high patient load. And so our disease pattern is different from developed countries. So we have to think our own solutions of treating these patients to give a satisfactory care to all these patients. So our society is coordinating to train our surgeons within the region to be trained in centers of excellence. In our country, in this region, there are centers of excellence in India and in Pakistan, and there are a couple of hospitals in Sri Lanka also of repute, and we are sending our trainees and interchanging them with these centers of excellence, and not only within the region, from UK or USA, the trainees would love to come here and see the patients and get the experience of treating these patients. So then there's another important venture I'm sure Srinath is going to elaborate on about a center of excellence we are going to embark on. And so this is part of the organization. One more thing, under the auspices of the SARC Surgical Care Society, we have, each country has started own associations. Say for example, in Sri Lanka, we started Sri Lanka Spinal Cord Network, which is affiliated to the International Spinal Cord Society, which is the world body of the spinal cord injuries, and the Asian Spinal Cord Network, ASCON, the regional body. And we are providing, training the stakeholders, all the stakeholders in disability care. So this is, for the last 12 years, we are conducting these activities as part of the SARC Surgical Care Society. So these are the services we embark on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pinto. I'm of course sure that all guests present here would agree that we're living in trying times. The entire world has been battling the COVID-19 pandemic for the past 2 years. And I believe our guests from the United Kingdom would also agree that things in our countries and the world over hasn't been at its best. But of course, we are recovering. The United Kingdom is recovering. Sri Lanka is recovering. This brings me to a very pertinent question, given the times. Professor Srinath Chandrasekhara, how hard has it become to practice your profession, to provide care to patients who need them the most during the pandemic?
Sharon, if there's one thing that we need to highlight during this year, it wasn't intended so, but during this Jubilee year, if there's one thing I need to highlight about the activities, that's the dedication of our surgeons and our healthcare, not only surgeons, the nurses, the healthcare workers, the paramedics, in treating our patients. I'm very proud to say that despite numerous drawbacks and challenges of infrastructure and lack of resources, which is not uncommon in a developing country, our surgeons and their teams, the team is very important, just not the surgeons, have managed to provide the best possible care under the circumstances to our patients. Yes, there has been some sort of slowing down in some of the non-urgent surgeries. That's inevitable when there is this kind of a pandemic. But we are very proud that together with the Ministry of Health and the government, that our doctors and their teams have been able to sustain essential care and essential surgical care to all our patients. I'm also,
Yes,
sorry,
Professor.
I just need to say this because it's something that I need to appreciate, that we have not only protected our patients, our teams have protected themselves and their teams.
Which is as important as
Yes, it is
protecting
very
the
important
patients
because if
during a
one
pandemic.
surgeon going down affects hundreds of patients. So we are very fortunate that we've managed to achieve this. And on behalf of the College of Surgeons, I salute all our surgeons and their teams for sustaining and maintaining services during these unprecedented times.
And Professor Chandrasekhar, of course, even when we work here at our news network, we have to wear our face masks, follow all the safety protocols, and I personally know how hard it is to keep a face mask on for an extended period of time, and to think that surgeons, medical staff, like you said, nurses, paramedics, attendants, caregivers, have to wear PPE gear on for hours on end across many days is the sort of dedication that I myself would find hard to fathom at times. But Professor Rowan Parks, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the services provided, of course, by the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh back at home?
Yeah, I think worldwide it has had a significant impact, and the situation in the UK very much similar to what Srinath mentioned has affected elective surgery. We've managed to keep emergency surgery and urgent surgery going, and that's due to the dedication and hard work of the staff, just as you mentioned. But that is leaving a bit of a backlog now of waiting lists and people waiting non-urgent surgery. So we have a challenge there, and I expect that's not just in the UK, that's pretty globally. And we'll have to work out solutions for that. And there's a lot of thinking and planning and discussions about what that might look like. In the UK, workforce is a big challenge for us. We need more workforce to deal with that backlog. We need physical space to do it, and the right space that keeps patients safe and protected. So elective centres is something that we're thinking might be a model for the future. So I think in the UK we're certainly going to see a change in how our clinical services and how our surgical services are delivered. But I think I should pay tribute to the dedication and commitment of staff across the professional groups who have had to work so hard over the last 18, 20 months. And unfortunately, we've also had some people who've succumbed to the virus and to COVID, dedicated surgeons, nursing staff who've lost their lives because they've been infected. So, you know, we pause at times to remember those who have, despite that risk, kept working and provided a really needed service despite the challenges.
Professor Jackie Taylor, change is inevitable, and I think if there is one lasting lesson that COVID-19 has taught the entire world, that would be at the top of the list. Do you believe that surgical care and services of physicians, of course, since you're from the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow, has changed fast enough to suit the pandemic situation and the changing nature of the world? Because, as you know, we no longer live under normal conditions. We call this the new normal.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we look back at where we've come from in the last 20 months, the pace of change has been staggering. I can't think of any other era when there has been so much progress. We have the medical profession, the allied health professions, the nursing staff they've all suffered, they've all shown great commitment, they've all shown incredible team working, and I think that's something that I've been particularly proud of and aware of. But we've seen incredible innovation. We were just mentioning in our discussions before, this time last year, the first patient in the world had not been vaccinated. And now just think of what proportions, how many billions of people around the world have been vaccinated against COVID. So we've seen tremendous innovation. We've seen new ways of delivering care. So we're using virtual clinics, using virtual ways of reporting x-rays and scans. So things that were beginning to happen within medical and surgical practice anyway have really been driven forward very quickly by the necessity of the pandemic. How we work as health services, how we work as colleges, those things have all changed, and I don't think we will ever go back to the ways of working before. I think we will enhance how we worked before, and we need to get that balance right of being able to do some work virtually and some patient care virtually, but that will never replace the sort of face-to-face contact for patients either. So I think the innovation has been absolutely, incredibly humbling, and I'm sure that will continue.
Dr. Narendra Pinto, speaking about virtual care, providing virtual care to patients, given the fact that a lot of the veterans in the field are, of course, senior members of our society, do you think the transition will be as easy, given because they have to get accustomed to using new technology, especially during this short period of time? In your experience, how has that been, the transition? Well, for the profession and for you personally as well, if I may ask.
Actually, Sharon, it's a good question, because I can tell you my experience when I faced the first Zoom interview, and then that was a very embarrassing thing.
The consultation, you mean?
Not only the consultation, we had a meeting and organization, and sometimes now the Zoom or the consultations are virtual consultations are very common. Even this morning, and sometimes at any time I can be disturbed by these virtual consultations. But of course, it's an experience. I read College of Edinburgh journal last month or before. They have a senior surgeon has mentioned, he's written his experience in the virtual Zoom conferences. So it's a silver lining, and I think it's going to stay. And I mean, the plus side is that the SARC Surgical Care Society Executive Committee meetings, those days we had to wait for some conference in some other country to visit there. But now we hold it every month. And not only all the members participate, even from Afghanistan during these troubled times. So it's a very positive development.
Like I said before, change is inevitable, and that's one of the main lessons that the COVID-19 pandemic has taught us. And it's important that we look towards the future. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Professor Srinath Chandrasekara, speaking about the future of the College of Surgeons in Sri Lanka, I know that you're in a very celebratory mood. You're celebrating 50 years of service to Sri Lanka, but have you planned for the future?
Yes, indeed, Sharon. I think as we reach our Golden Jubilee, our key task is, whilst rejoicing with our achievements, we need to look forward. So I wish to place before you some of the key activities that are in process for the immediate future as well as long term. I've already mentioned the plans to further enhance trauma care. Similarly, this year during the Golden Jubilee, we have initiated a completely new program through the college, which is to set up a model hospital. Now, since this is the first of its kind and a pilot project, we are limiting it to one particular area, which is a huge problem to people across the country, which is kidney stone disease. And it so happened that I'm also a urologist, a kidney stone surgeon, and it's not connected to my profession, but there's been the vision of the college.
Are you sure your profession didn't have a sway in that, the selection?
Not particularly, not particularly, but it is across all specialities. Kidney stone disease is one of the commonest problems, and I'm sad to say that despite best efforts of the government and the availability of very good facilities across all parts of our country, we still have a large number of patients productive on waiting lists for surgery.
Some don't make it through that waiting list.
Well, in this instance, we intervene, but it's quite a bit of discomfort that they go through while awaiting surgery. So we ensure that we do not lose lives as a result of this, but it's quite a bit of waiting. And people don't like to wait for surgery, and there's discomfort, if not pain. So this year, the college has been able to collaborate with a trust hospital, which is the Vijay Kumaratunga Hospital, which is supported and managed by the Ministry of Health. So it is a tripartite arrangement for the Vijay Kumaratunga Hospital and the Ministry of Health, where the College of Surgeons has been able to raise charitable funds, entirely charitable funds, to set up a state-of-the-art charity unit within the Vijay Kumaratunga Hospital for kidney stone surgery. Now, what is special about this unit is, unlike any other hospital in the state sector, this unit will accommodate any surgeon who has got a long waiting list, where the surgeon, with prior arrangement and of course accreditation and necessary processes, will be able to bring in the patients. So the surgeon can come in with the patients and then operate them with the most modern technology that is available across the globe to give them prompt care.
One-stop shop for surgeons.
One-stop shop for all surgeons from all parts of the country. So it's a model unit which will probably cater to more than 500 patients each month. But we do hope that this will be the starting point of similar models for other specialities. So this is the first time the College of Surgeons will be embarking on patient care directly, and we are very proud of it. Together with this, I must also mention that, again, another first for the college is that we have started on a pilot project to hold specialist exit examinations.
Okay.
So now, if you look at the United States, the exit, that is the end point of training, is based on a portfolio and an interview. But if you look at the United Kingdom, this is now done with an extensive examination. So whilst we have the highest standards for surgeons in our country, we want to enhance the professionalism and the level of accreditation of our surgeons to a further level. So the college has been able to link with the necessary experts, and we are hoping that we will have support from international bodies to set up this exit examination in different specialities, which I think is a long felt necessity for the country. So we've achieved a lot. So I think these are some of the immediate activities that are focused towards the future.
Thank you very much, Professor Srinath. Of course, moving to Professor Rowan, looking towards the future, planning for the future. Like I spoke to you during our small break, I've seen reports of surgical care being provided using mechanical arms. Is this still in an experimental stage? Is it being used?
So it is a fairly recent initiative, but it's not really experimental. In fact, our urology colleagues are probably at the forefront of this type of surgery globally. But technology is advancing and moving on and developing. And as surgeons, we have to, work with our industry partners. And that's something that as a college we've been involved in recently, trying to develop new areas of practice, extending the indications for the use of robotics. Now, robotics are mechanical arms, but they still need operated by a surgeon. And there's a lot of advantages. It can be done through minimal access, and it can be done in an ergonomically comfortable way for the surgeon. So these are technological advantages that we're looking to utilise to enhance patient care and to improve the patient's journey. So as a college, we are setting up a training unit for robotic surgery. In fact, in Edinburgh, it opens tomorrow. I'm going to miss the opening of that robotics centre. But this is an area where we are very keen to partner with other institutions, other colleges, to enhance the learning and the education for trainee surgeons coming through. So I think robotic surgery is one area. It might be an area we in the future collaborate very much with the college in Sri Lanka and how we develop an education program that uses the very latest in technology and advances in that field.
And maybe a brief overview about how the future of collaboration between the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and Sri Lanka is going to look like.
Well, very much one of the things I'm looking forward to this week, as I know Jackie is, we're both going to be signing new memorandum of understanding, and that's just a recognition of partnership. Jackie used the term earlier. It's partnership, working with colleagues that is mutually beneficial. We learn, they learn, and that's what it is very much aimed to deliver. So we're making that commitment, and I guess that's what it is, around education, assessment. Srinath mentioned exams and assessment of and assuring ourselves of good and high standards is really important. So I think making that commitment for the next number of years that we're going to work together in areas of patient education, trainee and surgical education and assessment is going to be really important for the future.
Professor Jackie Taylor, Professor Rowan spoke about robotics. Now, of course, for a developed country like the United Kingdom, access to these kind of technology is more readily available than for a developing country, of course, especially speaking of countries in the SAARC region, the Southeast Asian region. Professor Jackie, do you think that this technology can reach Sri Lanka in the near future?
I'm sure ultimately it will. I think what's really important, though, whenever we think about a new technology, whether it's robotics, we're also looking at different types of simulation for training. It's just really important that we position that correctly, and that it happens at the right stage of someone's training, for example, that the parameters are carefully controlled so that we don't focus too much on the new clever whiz-bang technologies and forget about the importance of the decision-making, the diagnostics that go into managing the patient, and all the things about being a good doctor, be physician or surgeon, communication skills, all of those things. So when we're thinking about, we often get carried away with new technologies, and they're great, they're exciting, but we need to make sure that they have the right place, and that we don't forget or ignore the really important things and qualities that a physician and a surgeon must have. But I am sure those technologies, as they develop, they will become more widely accessible. They will become less expensive. That's always what happens with technological development. But I don't think we should think it's the be-all and end-all of everything at the moment. There are many other things that we need to focus on in terms of good medical and surgical practice.
Dr. Narendra Pinto, given that, of course, you're the past president of the SAARC Surgical Care Society, what are the future plans for the SAARC Surgical Care Society, and what kind of a role does the Sri Lanka College of Surgeons have in this global association or regional association?
Actually, Shalan, as I mentioned, we are dealing with patient care. And of course, I mean, we have to think of the progress and the latest technologies and so on. But as Jackie mentioned, very correctly mentioned, that we have to have our normal physical examination and the clinical experience mainly, rather than relying on the technology. So in the region, there are centers of excellence dealing with robotic care, especially in India. I know several places and a couple of places in Pakistan. I'm not sure about the other countries. So, so our main focus is the surgical service and the less expensive modes of care to these patients.
Thank you very much, Dr. Narendra Pinto. And of course, you heard it from the eminent panel present here today, of course. They are in the country for the 50th anniversary celebrations of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka. And of course, we have the president of the College of Surgeons of Sri Lanka here, Professor Srinath Chandrasekara, and we wish him on behalf of the entire network the best of luck for your 50-year anniversary celebrations, and also, of course, the future plans that you mentioned to provide better surgical care to Sri Lankans and also share the knowledge that you have with the rest of the world. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us on our show. It's our pleasure. Professor Rowan Parks, thank you very much for coming down all the way from the United Kingdom in the middle of this pandemic. You've been on a very long flight. Thank you very much for taking time off and sharing information, of course, with the Sri Lanka College of Surgeons to better enhance surgical care across the world. And also a special thank you to Professor Jackie Taylor for joining us again from the United Kingdom, traveling all this way. We hope that your stay in Colombo and in Sri Lanka would be an enjoyable one. Of course, there are many places to visit in the country, but however, there might be a slight limitation because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much, Professor Jackie Taylor, for joining us on our show as well. And finally, we have Dr. Narendra Pinto. Thank you very much, Doctor. He is, of course, the past president of the SARC Surgical Care Society. Thank you very much for joining us on our show and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you very much, of course, to all our viewers out there who tuned in. It's an end for this show. That's all the time we've got. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.